Our movie begins during the time of the Second World War with a boy named Angus. He loved the sea but was always afraid to approach it, imagining that if he ever went into the water, he would drown and no one would be able to save him. He enjoyed collecting seashells, just as he used to do with his father in the past. One day, he found a large rock that felt surprisingly light, so he decided to keep it. Soon after, his mother Anna came to take him home. Back at the house, Angus went to the storage shed to place the seashells and the large rock. As he examined it, he noticed the rock was peeling, had a strange color, and a sticky substance was oozing out of it, resembling an egg. Before he could investigate further, his mother called him, so he left. Afterward, the rock made a slight movement. That night, the wind grew so strong that it pushed the shed door open. Angus went down to check and found that the egg had fallen to the ground and cracked open. He began to sense movement around him, hearing objects falling and breaking. Following the sounds, he discovered a small strange creature trying to hide from him. Angus reached out his hand, but the frightened creature tried to bite him. Startled, Angus ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife and a potato, and placed the potato in front of the creature, hoping it would eat. The creature began to eat, allowing Angus to touch it without resistance. Soon he noticed that the creature was injured on its back, so he rushed to bring the first aid kit to treat it. Afterward, he left it in the shed and went back to his room so his mother wouldn't notice his absence. The next morning, he woke up to the sound of a military battalion stationed at their doorstep. Captain Thomas knocked on their door and informed them that, under orders from headquarters, the battalion would be staying temporarily in their garden, while only the officers would be accommodated inside the house. Later, Angus went to his father's library, took a dictionary, and headed to the shed to check on the creature. There, he found it chewing on his father's shoe, realizing it was hungry. He hurried to the kitchen, grabbed a basket of leftover food, and gave it to the creature. Finally, he decided to name it Crusoe, after the author of his father's favorite book. Angus opened the dictionary, trying to figure out what kind of creature Crusoe was, but he couldn't find any clear classification. After Crusoe finished eating, Angus tried to touch his skin, only to realize it was very dry and in need of water. So he poured some water into the basket over Crusoe and immediately noticed how happy and playful the creature became in the water. From that moment on, Angus began taking care of Crusoe and playing with him regularly. One day, his mother was looking for him because she wanted to tell him something about his father. While searching, she met Lewis, the new handyman, and asked him to start cleaning the shed, as she suspected her son was keeping an animal there, something strictly forbidden in the house. Lewis went to clean the shed, and Angus saw him emptying the water where Crusoe had been, but the creature was no longer there. Lewis then asked Angus what he was doing in his father's shed, explaining that he was there under his mother's orders. Angus left quickly and searched everywhere for Crusoe until nightfall, when he finally discovered that the creature had grown much larger and was now inside the house. At that moment, the battalion's cook's dog, named Strunk, chased after Crusoe inside the kitchen, but the dog was tied to the stove, and as it pulled violently on its leash, trying to reach Crusoe, it caused chaos and damage in the kitchen. The cook had no choice but to lock the dog inside the shed to prevent further destruction. Later, Angus heard his sister screaming as she ran out of the bathroom in fear, realizing that Crusoe had gone upstairs. He rushed to her before she could tell anyone, explained everything, and showed her that Crusoe wasn't dangerous. Still, she was astonished at how quickly he had grown. His sister, Kirsty, promised not to tell anyone. The next day, their mother Anna gave Lewis some of her late husband's old clothes. Lewis thanked her and said he would thank her husband personally once he returned. But Anna explained that her husband would never return. He had drowned with his ship a year earlier, and their son still didn't know about his father's death. She then asked Lewis to fix the bathroom. Meanwhile, Angus and Kirsty were inside the bathroom, trying to stop Lewis from entering, but they failed. When Lewis stepped inside, he saw Crusoe. After calming down, he told them that the creature resembled a seahorse, but was in fact a rare mythical animal that only very few had ever seen. According to legend, it was both male and female at the same time, and once it grew fully, it would lay eggs only once before dying. They all remained in the bathroom until Anna came looking for them. Lewis quickly covered for the children, telling her they were simply helping him repair the bathroom pipes. In this way, they managed to keep Crusoe's existence hidden from her. While the army was holding a banquet in the house, Angus came out of the bathroom and forgot to close the door behind him. Crusoe slipped out, where he was spotted by the dog that had been set loose in the house. The dog began knocking things over as it tried to get to Crusoe. The creature ran downstairs, right next to the dining room, where the officers of the battalion were gathered. Crusoe darted under the table, while the dog leapt across it, ruining the entire feast. Crusoe escaped outside with the dog chasing after him, until he jumped into the fountain full of fish and began devouring them until sunrise. There, Lewis found him and realized he had grown much larger than before. They had no choice but to load him into a cart and take him to the nearest lake, since keeping him in the house had become impossible. When Angus returned home, he discovered that his mother had asked Captain Thomas to train him with the soldiers so that he would stay occupied. Angus became busy with the military drills and was unable to visit Crusoe, who kept waiting for him. Eventually, Angus managed to slip away from Thomas and went to the lake where Crusoe lived. He sat waiting on the shore, but the creature didn't appear, so Angus took a small boat and rowed out to the middle of the lake. Suddenly, Crusoe surfaced behind him, now enormously huge from eating so many fish. much. Crusoe still wanted to play with him as before, so he let Angus climb onto his back and swam with him through the water. At first, Angus was terrified, since he feared the water, but he gradually got used to it and continued riding on Crusoe's back until they reached a massive net barrier that the army had placed to close off the lake. After they finished playing, Crusoe returned Angus to the shore. Just before diving back underwater, however, the cook rank spotted him from a distance. Angus returned home overjoyed and told Lewis and Kirsty what had happened. The next day, Captain Thomas took them all to the hill to show them the battalion's strategy to strike the Germans if they approached the coast. He demonstrated the power of the cannons and ordered a live fire test, launching missiles into the very same lake where Crusoe lived. Angus tried desperately to stop them, but failed, and the missiles were fired. Because he had gotten too close to the test area, he was nearly injured, and his mother punished him by keeping him at home. Meanwhile, one of the townsmen, who was convinced he had seen Crusoe before, continued to watch the lake with a photographer by his side, hoping to capture the creature on camera as soon as it appeared, but he failed to do so. Bill decided to fake a picture, driven by his obsession with fame. The photo ended up in the newspapers, and when Rank saw it, he confirmed to Walker and Strunk that he had truly seen the creature with his own eyes. Walker and Strunk then agreed to try to capture Crusoe themselves, hoping to gain notoriety and be celebrated as the men who killed the monster. Meanwhile, Angus slipped out of the house to check on Crusoe after the bombing, and Lewis went with him. When they reached the lakeshore, Angus kept calling out until Crusoe finally appeared, but the creature, now wounded and mistrustful, tried to attack them until Lewis intervened to save Angus. He explained to Angus that after everything that had happened, Crusoe had become wild and hostile, seeing every human as a threat. Angus was heartbroken, feeling that he had lost his only friend. Back at home, Angus soon heard Rank's dog barking and realized someone was out hunting for Crusoe. Sure enough, Walker and Strunk were searching the lake until they provoked Crusoe, who attacked their boat. They radioed in a false report that they were under attack in the lake and demanded missile strikes to save them. Their boat capsized near the shore, and while Crusoe nearly attacked Rank, Walker fled in terror. At that moment, Angus rushed into the water, trying to stop Crusoe from killing the dog. He swam until he began to drown, and Crusoe, instead of harming him, tossed Rank aside and dove in to save Angus from the water. Lewis managed to revive the boy on shore. Soon after, Thomas and Anna arrived and, for the first time, saw the great sea creature before their eyes. Anna finally realized her son had not been lying or imagining things, but suddenly, missiles were launched at the lake, following the battalion's earlier orders before the capsized boat lost contact. Angus climbed onto Crusoe's back, urging him to swim away from the barrage. He tried to guide him to an escape route beyond the lake's boundary nets. The stormy weather and heavy rain made it impossible for Thomas to cancel the strike orders by radio. Meanwhile, the lookouts reported seeing what they thought was a submarine's periscope, convinced a German U-boat was approaching, when in fact it was Crusoe's head. The shelling continued, and the nets were lifted higher to prevent the submarine from breaking through. Thomas and Anna followed in a boat, trying to rescue Angus if he drowned. Angus begged Crusoe to dive deep and hide from the bombardment. Crusoe submerged, swimming down into the dark waters. Then, with a final surge of strength, he leapt high over the net, crashing down with such force that it tore loose from the tower anchoring it. Crusoe escaped into the open sea at last, finally free. Angus watched his friend for the last time at sunrise, swimming away into the endless ocean, as if bidding him farewell.